Eden Koz here with Just Be, and we are about to take a spiritual boom. We are at an unprecedented time in human history where we are transitioning from 3D to 5D within the great spiritual awakening. This video and audio podcast is the place for you to find your truth beyond politics, your sovereignty, your voice. Let's kick up your vibration now. By the way, each episode ends with the Just Be practice to do just that. P.S. Just to know a little bit more about me, I'm a psychological empath, meditation master, dimensional healer, all the things to help you within this ascension. To learn more about me, visit me at edenjustbe.com. And let's get this party started. Eden, Just Be spiritual boom, and we got a damn good show. And y'all know I like to do and move around before we get started, before we officially get started. And today I'm just like, Ralph and Lahni are here. So y'all go ahead and say hello, and we'll get more into them in a moment. Hi.
Hello.
Hiya.
We're excited to be here.
Oh, I'm so glad that y'all are here too. And I'm going to talk about our relationship and how we came to be. All right. First, I want to bring up, I have said now for a couple of shows in association with the Grassroots Warrior Network, and I'm so pleased to be a part of this new channel. There are a lot more people that we are being able to touch. So I'm so grateful about that in terms of getting out the Great Awakening. And I come from a very positive, uplifting place, knowing that we are all going through challenges, yet everything is going to be okay, actually better than okay. So Ralph and Lahni from California, we are going to talk today about potentially Astrocartography, because that is how I came to meet these two, Feng Shui, astrology, and whatever else comes to pass. So I was introduced to you guys from my only regular guests on the show, Pia and Cullen, and they will be on probably in about 3 weeks. So if you have not watched a show with them yet, fabulous, fabulous people. So I was interested in wherever my next move was going to be. I wanted it to align with me specifically. So Astrocartography had started coming into my vision, and they referred me to these beautiful people. And one other thing before I read their bio, they are the third guests that I've had on the show that are a couple in alignment doing spiritual work together. So we are going to talk some more about that because I think that is fabulous. Okay, let's get officially into this. So, Ralph and Lahni deAmicis. Thank you. Okay, master herbalists, both naturopathic doctors as well. All right, so let's get official here. And I like to read with feeling. After successful careers in other fields, Ralph and Lahni separately made decisions to make their part-time professional astrological consulting practice their full-time work, motivated by newly available astrological software. Still not having met, they drove half an hour from opposite directions to meet at Princeton University, where a conference of brilliant astrologers presented their findings from a translation project that turned the professional astrology community on its head. All of this is very interesting. They met after the first presentation, and it changed their lives, proving that it is possible to live your best life, with a like-minded soulmate. Ralph and Lahni both hold postgraduate degrees, including doctorates in the natural health field, which aid them in their astrological specialties of health astrology, space astrology, as well as westernized Feng Shui and relocation astrology using astrocartography and local space. They have 5 children, 9 grandchildren, 2 great-grandchildren, and live in Napa, California, because they have supportive planetary lines. There. Ooh, let me take a calming breath for a second. Welcome, you two. How was that?
That was great.
That was fun.
All life in front of us.
Yeah, so give us some timelines on that. When exactly did y'all meet? How long ago was this?
We met in 1994.
Okay.
August 13th.
And yeah, left-handers day.
Left-handers day, yes.
I felt like he needed a left-hander in his life.
Perseid meteor shower, yes.
I'm left-handed. What were your successful careers before leaving to do a professional astrological career? What did y'all both do?
I I started out as a legal administrator in the
Oh my
accounting field,
gosh.
and I did some efficiency consulting work, which led me to kind of spatial design and for efficiency for workplaces, specializing in doctors and lawyers' offices.
Okay, so not Feng Shui based, but kind of like leading you.
Close to it. Close
Wow.
to it.
And I had worked in design since I was in high school. Started my businesses when I was actually in high school, and then continued them through college. And then I went from making retail design going from there into manufacturing. And I worked in manufacturing for many years. I basically became what you call an ergonomic engineer, an environmental and ergonomic engineer. Those were my specialties. And did that for many years. And then I got very sick in my early 40s from all the chemicals. And I
Wow.
realized I was going to have to change profession. And that's one of the reasons why I realized I should change to a field I had started studying since I was about 18, astrology. And I had worked in, I had been consulting since I was about 21.
Shut
So that was, I realized
Really?
I should get away from the machinery and do something different. So I was going down from driving south to Princeton University, and Lahni was driving north and we met. And I walked over to her, just so you know. I walked over and introduced myself.
And interestingly, since we both started studying astrology around 1970 or something like that,
Whoa.
and we actually, like he said, we each had individually, separately, our practices on the side, but we were with partners who were not at all supportive of our interest in astrology. So it really held us back from having any kind of vision that this was something that we could do for our life's work. And then computers saved the day, because when we got rid of the unsupportive people in our lives and we got computers and we bought astrological software, because that would allow us to calculate not only the charts quickly, but for this spatial astrology, local space and astrocartography, those charts, a regular chart maybe takes an hour and a half to calculate by hand. An astrocartography chart or a local space chart takes 10 hours to calculate by hand. So we just never could provide enough detail and information for our clients if we had to calculate the charts one by one.
And now it takes, now it's minutes to do it. In fact, I mean, we have the apps on our phones. It's silly, I mean, how quick it is in comparison.
Wow. So these other partners, were you guys married before, or just they? Okay, both of you guys were married. And how long were you both divorced when you met each other?
Oh, I guess I was divorced a year or so. It wasn't that.
Okay.
It's been a very long divorce.
I was divorced about 8 years.
Yes, exactly.
In between.
And was convinced you never needed to get married again, but
in the first 15 minutes, I said to him, I don't know what life has in store for me, but I know one thing for sure. I'm never getting married again.
I'm very convincing.
And so we like to say that Mercury, the planet of writing and communication, and Uranus, the planet of sudden changes and disruption, just looked at each other knowingly and said, and Uranus said to Mercury, you write that down.
You write that.
We're going to make her read those words.
Okay. And this is so funny too, because with Pia and Cullen talking about how they met, it was the same thing. Pia was like, I do not want to be in a relationship again. And just, okay. And really interesting for you guys to know, I haven't, this is the first time we've really talked about astrology on the show, which is, it's about time. So yeah, y'all are bringing in subjects that are new here. Let me ask you this question first. So how did you guys first start seeing that this great awakening was happening?
Well, when in the mid 90s is when we really started seeing it. It came in a bunch of different ways. When we both started, well, what happened, we were very fortunate when we started our practices in kind of a funny way, because I had started studying Feng Shui beforehand, which is very related. They're both what are called spiritual technologies. And they started becoming really popular. And because of my background as an environmental designer and environmental engineer, I understood a lot about how this worked. And because of my knowledge of astrology, the dynamics really made a lot of sense. So what happened was we started having people who were interested in having us talk about that topic. So we started doing talks. And what we would do is we would bring people's charts, because we realized the chart gave us great insights about the environments they liked. This really helped develop our practice, because where trying to do talks about astrology is hard because it's not an easy subject. You know, most people know the very surface stuff, but Feng Shui, guess what? I want to improve my life. Let's move the furniture. People are going to move the furniture anyway.
Yeah, it makes sense, and it's easy
It's easy.
in
It's
a
something
sense.
that you can see the difference and you can feel the difference. So it's one of the reasons we moved along with this. Well, as we went into this, we also, as we were doing these workshops, I remember we would be doing workshops, and because I had been working professionally as an herbalist since 1972, I started one of my first shops. I started also, I had a whole herb section and started studying it. So we would recommend to people, you know, this moving this bed will really help, but maybe you want to use this particular herb. Maybe you need some valerian to really get you to calm down and rebuild those nerves. And people would say, "Oh, you know about herbs?" I said, "Well, yeah, I do." And would you be interested in teaching a class about it? So now we started teaching a
Oh,
class about it. And this led us to other herbalists, and we started working in kinesiology. And as we went along in this, we started studying kinesiology. We started working on our naturopath along the way. We started encountering other people who worked, you know, with muscle testing. And one of the great books in muscle testing is a book called Power versus Force.
mm,
It's by David R. Hopkins, MD. He's a brilliant, brilliant man in Hawkins. And he had written a book on orthomolecular psychology and about how foods affect people's psychological positions, you know, their attitudes
And their energy.
And he talks a lot about there and doing muscle testing to see what people's frequency is. And now, how basically you can measure human energy from 0 to 1,000, and up at the 1,000 level, there's very few of those. That's the Christ consciousness, and up to 200 is basically where fear lives, fear and pain, anxiety, and at 200 is the number of courage, and above 200, you're now into life affirming. Below you're in life destructing, above your life affirming. And one of the things they had been doing is testing people for years, and they had noticed that the overall frequency of the planet had gone up. It had for years it had been just below 200. Not a good place. Now suddenly it was just above 200. And they realized it wasn't because the great mass of humanity had all come up. No, what was happening was that you had a lot of people in the upper levels going up even higher. There was a lot of spiritual growth going on, and it's a logarithmic issue where their influence is much more powerful, and they were bringing the whole list up with them,
Pull up the whole
group.
average.
Yeah.
Right.
And we just started spying that. And then additionally, at the same time, yes.
Well, I just wanted to say that as we worked with students, and a lot of the workshops that we did, at least early on, were with massage therapists at massage schools, which we thought was a great way to teach this kind of spatial consciousness to them, because they could transfer it to their clients.
yes.
Because a lot of times when people have problems going on in their body, they go back into their environments. The environments that they've created for themselves have built-in stresses because they place the furniture in the wrong way, or they're facing in the wrong direction. And unless you remove that, they just keep infusing themselves with that kind of pain. Right. And when we calibrated them on this scale, they were generally on that higher evolving level because of this awareness of body in space.
Right. And then their teachers were even higher still, but many times they were bouncing a little bit in there. And what was interesting, what Lahni was saying is true. The space that most people have supports who they were, not who they want to be. Because you put the furniture in place at a certain point, you don't tend to move it. And so all these old patterns are there, but you keep wanting to evolve. Furniture doesn't just pick up and move unless you have it all on wheels. But if you had all your furniture on wheels, it would gradually move around because you would nudge it without realizing it.
And maybe your life would get a little chaotic,
but you would improve.
It wouldn't be boring.
Exactly.
Wow. Okay. A question is formulating in my head that I feel that you guys have seen so much. What does that mean? That you've been privy to watch so many people, that you're also coming in with all these different ways of looking at things. It feels very spicy.
Well,
yeah.
When we
what
look
would you
at
say
the
to that?
astrological chart, we're fond of saying, when we look at your astrological chart, this is your contract that you made with the universe when you were at the line of incarnation. You're like, okay, you're about to step over the line. What do you want to experience in this density?
Sign here.
This is what it is. So this chart, that's what it is. Now, we're your astro advocates because who knows what the contract says? Nobody. You know, until you go to the astro advocate, they look at the chart and they say, oh, look at that. You had a really tough time with your father, but your mother and you were so close, but you had some challenges with your sister, or you really were very talented in this area, but nobody ever recognized you for that. And they go, how do you know that? Well, we're looking at your chart. This is what you asked for. And so when we do that with space, we get the same thing. We're fond of saying, we walk into your space, there's no secrets.
Because we're seeing the current you.
We see where you're blocking yourself. Where's your clutter happening? Where do you give yourself more room? What are you ignoring? Where are the blank spaces? And when you walk around this area, each part of the room is divided into one of 12 spaces that relate to 12 houses that are 12 areas of your life. And so if you look down toward the ground level, that's your past. Eye level, the middle of your wall, that's your present. That's what's occupying your consciousness right this minute while you're walking through life, and your plans for the future. And many people don't worry about their future too much, and that's why they get cobwebs up on the ceiling.
Upper walls are all empty. People who have very strong spiritual lives tend to have a lot of stuff up high, and people who have like deep investments towards the future have a lot of stuff up really high.
And it's why when you move and you still have a lot of stuff on the floor in boxes, you lean the paintings and things like up against the wall on the floor, you feel like you're stuck in the past. You can't really get moving. You can't start your new life in your new place because, you know, everything is down there, you know, and you're looking down instead of looking up at your possibilities.
Yeah.
So
optimism is caused by standing up straight. So one of the tricks that it's why they make soldiers stand up straight and it makes them optimistic. Look, children are always so optimistic. Why? Because they're looking up all the time at you. So parents were always obsessed with the past because we're looking down at the kids all the time. You know, it just, what's her name? Maria Kondo recently had this whole thing about how, you know, she was
the tidying up girl.
The tidying up girl. How she,
Yes.
when she had kids, she stopped worrying about cluttering. Well, that's what happened to her. She's only like 4'10" or 4'11". So she has spent her whole life looking up at stuff. Of course, she has no problems with clutter. She looks up all the time. People who look down and feel pessimistic get clutter.
But
People
now she has kids.
Now she has kids.
She's looking down
all the time.
She doesn't have time for tidying.
Exactly, because you know now she's really more focused on the past. But you see, the reason people hold on to stuff because they're not optimistic. They're fearful of letting it go. But when you're looking up all the time, you don't get that. So one of the tricks to getting rid of clutter is just make sure when you walk in every room, there's some image that brings your eye up high. It makes you look up a little bit and to the right, which is the optimistic side of the body, the strong side of the body. It's a simple kinesiological response, but everyone blames clutter on your emotional past. Bull malarkey. It's not, it's really a kinesiological response that people simply have.
Man, y'all are going to be bringing so much wisdom to this, and I'm so appreciative of that. Because suddenly I got divorced 2.5 years ago, so I wanted to move out of the house because it didn't support what I wanted or what I desired anyway. So it is so neat that all my furniture was moved, everything was recreated. So I'm really going to look through. Yeah, I'm gonna just what you guys just discussed. I'm gonna work on that or look at that. In terms of Feng Shui, those are beautifully simple aspects that you just brought, but they're also very deep. What else would you say about that? What are some things other things that people could simply digest or look at or notice about their space?
Well, you know, the rooms that you spend the most time in are the most important to you because you program your space and then your space programs you by what you're looking at.
Yes.
So, you know, it's not important for you to have your guest room be perfect, but if you spend a lot of time in the family room with your family, or if we are consulting with someone and they have a problem in their life, You know, if it's weight, we're going to look in the kitchen. If it's, you know, we have a family room that nobody likes to hang out in, they all go to their own rooms, then we're going to look at that space. If it's a problem, we're going to fix it. If it's not a problem, we're not going to fix it. So first, analyze what area of your life you want to change, because when you start moving furniture, it's going to change. And we've had people say, well, you know, at a workshop, I would say, what area of your life you want to change? Oh, my life is perfect. I'm like, please don't move anything, because if you move something, it's going to change. You may not, and if you don't know what you're asking for, you're going to get variety, which the universe can do very well.
Yeah.
So analyze what you want to change, what you want to make better. And then we have westernized that 8-part Bagua that's associated with Feng Shui into a 12-part westernized Bagua. And it basically goes along with the 12 houses in the astrological signs. So these are areas of your life, your self-image, your resources or your talents or your money would be number 2. Number 1 would be your self-image. I'm sorry. The number 2 area would be resources. Number 3 is communication and small children. Number 4 is home and family and things like that. And when you walk in a room, when you're standing in the doorway, if you point to the middle third of the left-hand wall, that's number 1. And then start numbering clockwise. So 1, 2, 3, straight across from the middle of the wall, straight across from the entry door, is going to be the number 4 home and hearth section.
Right.
And so if you move into a new place, that's the place you want to anchor so it feels like home. It'll feel like a strange place unless you put something
Right.
that ties you to the sense of home
History
in that area of the number 4 section. And you can do this on the whole building. You can do it on the lot. You can do it on each individual room, always reorienting by the doorway. And then you get a micro and a macro. And the micro is going to be so highly personalized, while the macro is an overview how the whole family is going to feel there. And when we go farther than that, it becomes astrocartography. So we, you know, there's just a whole blending of these energies. And simply put, Feng Shui is energy, wind and water. That's what that means. If you understand how energy flows, you can manipulate that energy to support what you want to do in that space.
Right. And one of the simplest things that people can do for themselves is one in their bedroom, because one is the space where it's most intimate for you, is one trying to make sure it's balanced. Like if you walk in a bedroom, for instance, we walk in a bedroom and there's a dresser along the front and it's piled high with stuff. Well, towards the front of the room is the career area. It means, and then the back of the room is relatively quiet except for the bedroom. It means they're focusing massively on their career. And then they wonder why they don't have love in their life. Well, okay, wow. You've put all this energy up here in your career. You need to balance the room a bit.
Or you'll like this one. Bed in the bedroom represents the relationship. It's either the relationship you have or the relationship you want to have, or how you're making room for love in your life. If there's a little tiny pathway on one side and a wide pathway on the other side, you're not really inviting an equal relationship. You're looking to be, depending on whether you're using the one with the large access or the skinny access, you're either putting yourself through an obstacle course to get there, or you're giving yourself control over the relationship and you're not understanding that the other person doesn't feel like an equal. So there's a lot of very logical things about the way you look at your space. I have a little meditation that I give to people, and I say, pick one room, usually the bedroom, because like Ralph said, it's the most intimate, the most personal to you. That's where you dream about what you want in the future, right? So you go in that space and you stand in the number 1 section and you say, I'm looking at my past, I'm looking at the current, I'm looking to the future. What do I have there? If you've got dirty laundry there, this is your self-image, this is your sense of identity out in the world, your ego, your dynamism, how you approach the world. You know, you do the same in the number 2 section, your money and your resources. There's nothing there. Oh, that's why there's no balance in my bank account. You know, so you can get very, very literal and go in each of these sections, spend a few minutes and meditate on, what do you think this means? Even images on paintings.
Yes.
If you have a picture or a painting and it's abstract, well, you know, the universe can give you abstractions in that area. And there's some places where that might be inspiring in the number 12 section, even in the number 9 section, which is, you know, spirit and ideas and idealism. That could handle an abstract painting, or the number 11 section. But in number 2, which is your resources and money in the bank, you want reality.
Got it.
And if you've got a picture, say it's a picture of cut flowers in a vase or a bowl of fruit. Oh, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that lovely? Very Taurian, very appropriate for that section, except for one thing. They're going to die in 5 days.
Yes.
The fruit's going to go bad. The flower's going to wither and die. How about a bush or a flowering tree on that image? It's grounded and it's there forever. So you have to get really, really logical to apply Feng Shui for the benefit, your benefit in life. And then whenever you see that image in the future, you'll say, boy, I'm glad I took that other temporary image away, because I really feel more grounded now.
Well, and it's so funny as you talk about this, Lahni, like a lot of when people come to me and they're having physical issues, like, oh, my shoulders are really intense. Well, it's literal, because you're carrying a lot of weight on your shoulders. Oh, my heart hurts. And I've just been through this, you know, terrible relationship. Well, your heart's been stabbed, or you were stabbed in the back. So there's a pain. So it's interesting. I totally understand what you're talking about as well.
Yeah.
Whoa. So interesting. Can we take just a second to, I feel like we're going to come back to this. Can y'all talk about astrocartography and what that is?
Sure. Basically, when you're born, the planets are overhead in certain spots. They simply are. And so if you imagine like your aura, okay, as a big plastic balloon around you when you're born, and imagine all the places where the planets are going with a line running north to south as like hot wires, right? And they sink into the balloon and they put a little crimp in the balloon. They don't break it, but they put a little crimp in the balloon. It creates these nodes along your aura, that the way your aura is aligned on the planet has these hot spots. And each one of these planets has a different personality. You know, they're not equal. They're like for people who played the game of chess. The game of chess was based upon the planets. The most powerful board on the chessboard is actually the queen, not the king. Right? And that's the moon, of course, because the moon is the one that's closest to us. The king is the sun, of course, moves one spot at a time, like one day at a time. It's aligned in the same way. So our basic hierarchy of energy is patterned into our aura. And as we travel across the planet and we come to these spots where the planet was overhead, that energy activates. That part of our aura starts resonating. It's like if we were a musical instrument and we had a group of strings, we would go to that area, someone plucks that string really well and it starts vibrating. Where if you go to the areas in between, you get a little bit of quiet. And that's why people say when you go to your account and get away from it all. But there's energies that are both grounding and elevating. So there's energies that will bring you towards, the planets have two sides of them. One might be towards your career and the other one is towards your home. Like for instance, when we moved here, I moved to my sun IC line. The IC line is the grounding line. Getting me to leave California is really hard because it's the sun.
Even for a visit.
Even for a visit.
We call it visiting America.
Right.
Okay, so where are y'all from originally?
I'm from New Jersey and I lived in Philadelphia and New York.
All throughout
that region.
Oh my God. How about you, Lahni?
Well, we lived a half an hour north and south of Princeton, so I was in the Philadelphia area.
Right,
yes.
exactly.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yes.
Got it.
So when we decided to make this move, it was 100% because of planetary lines.
Yes.
We were, shortly after we got together, and the reason that we got together was this astrological conference that was happening in Monterey, California, 3 years or a year later.
Right.
And so we ended up going together, and I looked at him and he looked at me, and I said, you know, I feel great. I haven't had a migraine. I don't feel stiff. I've got, you know, I just feel fantastic. I have more energy. And every time we were lecturing here, every time we came to California, we felt great. Well, he was on a Pluto line. Pluto is a
On the East
planet
Coast.
about transforming your life, and you know, I call it burning down your life and starting over again. I mean, it's just a
Jeez.
very profound, intense kind of
Yes.
line.
And my other nearest line was a Mars line, so my life was very martial, very, you know.
So, and for me, you know, I have a Mars line out here, but my Mars is in Virgo, so it needed to be boosted. It needed to be amped up. So when we work with astrocartography and planetary lines, we really get to personalize this for you, because what's your experience? What's your Mars like? He's got a better Mars than I have. He's got a Mars in Leo, so he's naturally active and fiery. I have a Mars in Virgo. It's called the detriment position. So I need a little boost for that. And so when we realized that we felt that much better out here, we had like a 10-year plan to move out here. We had to wait for his son to graduate high school. And then we moved out here, and our life is just idyllic now.
But
so
it was really, but it really is, people don't realize that's why when you travel to certain places, you just really resonate with it. You know, you find you go to certain areas,
or you don't.
or you don't. You know, you go to an area, you know, that's like people who travel for their work. They find, you know, just certain places they travel to. They like their salespeople. They never get any sales there. They hate going there, or even singers, like for instance, they hate playing certain venues. You know, they just don't love me in that venue for some reason. You know, and they're going to different lines. They're activating certain lines. It's an amazing technique. It was actually developed.
Yes.
Wasn't developed that long ago. It was developed in the 1970s. There were techniques that went back before then, but the necessary computer technology didn't exist to be able to do it practically. And it was actually an astrologer in San Francisco who developed it, who had traveled a great deal and had read a lot about some older work done on this back in the 1930s. Though some of the oldest techniques of astrology that go back thousands and thousands of years actually relate back to this, because a lot of the first places where astrology was actually used was for aligning property lines in Greece.
Well, and this is a key point that I'd like to make for you and for your listeners, and that is that not everybody can move to their best planetary line. No, not everybody can or wants to pick up and move their life. You know, it's a big thing, and if you have people that connect you to a place and you don't want to leave them or things like that, that can be very difficult. But you can bring the energy of the line to you. So once you establish where your sort of heart's desire is, or where your best help for your career is, or something like that, then you can, you know, for example, you have great lines in Colorado, you know, buy some rocks that are from Colorado and have them in your space, or do business with people that are there, or have imagery and artwork that depicts areas in Colorado that gives you that place for you to work out that energy in your own space, and you can bring that planetary line to yourself.
Or listen to music from that region. For instance, I have great lines that cross right through Rio de Janeiro, and I listen to Brazilian music, and it completely changes my frequency. Just completely changes energy. You know, it just makes me sharper and brighter. You know, because of the lines that go through there.
Right.
So it's really fascinating. There's also another thing that people can do too, and people don't realize. One of the things that is another concept, that's another astrological technique that's related to it, called local space. And it means that when you're born, the planets are in certain directions from you. And what we find is that people will tend to have favorite compass directions that they like to face for different reasons. And people are drawn to it. Like if you have a favorite chair in a house, you can pretty much bet that the favorite chair you had in your previous house was facing the same compass direction. It happens again and again and again. It's hysterical. Yeah. And so sometimes just changing your angle until you feel it feels right to you makes a big difference. For instance, salespeople, generally speaking, always do better if you can let them face east. Because what's happening is the energy is flowing from the North Pole, it flows to the south. The body's designed, everything's actually designed on how the body's designed. The body's designed, the energy moves from the left side of the body to the right side of the body. So when they're facing east, energy is moving from their left side, the me side, to the we side, right? So, when I say, hi, my name's Ralph, you hold out your right hand, not your left hand. Your right hand is the stronger part of the body. It's the more armored part of the body. So it moves them to the side of the body that they feel more confident. And sales, you've got to feel confident. Whereas you have to do a patient negotiation. It's going to take a lot of time. You got to be really listening to the other person. You face west because it slows it all down.
Okay.
It improves your patience. I was in jury duty one time, and the entire time when what was going on, I was sitting over on the facing pretty much east because I was editing. I brought two books. I brought a book along to edit while I was there because he used to do a lot. But then when we got to the time where we had to start, doing our deliberations, I moved around to the other side of the table, right to the middle, and faced west. And I ended up being the person who kind of parsed everything else that everybody else negotiated everything else that everybody said.
A shock that he would be the one to do that, right?
Yeah. I was facing west now. It slowed me way down because I'm not usually that patient.
But I wanted you to get a chance to talk, but I want to just quickly interject. We actually had a client when we lived on the East Coast, which was close to the casinos down in Atlantic City, who had us calculate the best position for him to sit with his compass direction to win at the casinos.
Apparently it worked very well.
And it worked very well.
Yeah.
Okay, let me ask this question. Okay, knowing you guys, the Philly area, Jersey area, and Ralph, you talking about having an interest in astrology starting at 18, what were y'all's parents like? Give us a little bit of history.
Well, my family, you want to go first? You go first.
Let me go first, just because my mother was interested in astrology and things like that, but not like crazily so. She thought it was very interesting. And but my interest in astrology came from my family in a different way. And that was that I had a twin brother and I have twin daughters who were the fourth straight generation of identical female twins in my first husband's family.
Wow.
And so I was fascinated by the fact that people could have the same chart and live their lives either identically or completely differently. And that was just a really fascinating thing to me that I had to get in there and figure out how and why that worked. So
wow. All right, Ralph, what about you?
Well, I grew up in northern New Jersey with an Italian American family. Both my parents, all three of my grandparents were from Italy. All of my great grandparents were from Italy. But in New Jersey, 40% of the people there were descended from Italy. So it was very, a very close-knit community, and I had a lot of family nearby. And my mom was an artist, but during the Depression, she had to stop doing her, going to art school and do other work because she was the only person in her family who had a job at the time.
Oh my gosh. What do you mind if I ask what kind of art? Did she paint? Did she do pottery
She painted and drew, but I'm artistic. I'm extremely artistic and I'm extremely creative. I actually have a dynamic in my chart. There's astrology is all about geometry. And there's a number which they call 72, which is the number of the goddess. And it has to do with the degree of a 5-pointed star. And they find that when you have this between two planets, it creates a lot of creativity. I have it between the sun and the moon, both in feminine signs. So it takes me extremely creative, and sometimes a little too much. I mean, poor Lahni, I wake up and say, Lahni, I've got an idea.
Again? Another one?
Yes.
I've done tons of different arts, from music to painting to sculpture.
He started out as a painter, drawing, painting. Then he went on to sculpting in metal, which we have all this art around our house. It creates an amazing energy because it's made with his own hands.
Yes.
And then he worked in carving marble. He went to Italy to carve marble. Then our first byline writing an article together was for Maquette magazine, which is the technical journal for sculpture magazine. And it was the about a sculpture program in the town called Marble, Colorado.
Oh my
And we
gosh.
both were carving marble with 40, 50 other carvers there outside. It was just an amazing experience. We wrote about that from the point of view of the expert versus the novice. And so before that, I had primarily worked in, although I did a lot of drawing, I had primarily worked in ceramic. So we have a lot of artistic energy between us.
And because I'm the youngest child in my family, there's 3 kids, but I'm also one of the youngest cousins. I was kind of on my own. I had kind of a lot of flexibility. And because I was an artist, I was encouraged in that. I was really encouraged. Well, when I started studying astrology, people didn't consider that strange. Besides, the Italians are very kind of open to astrology. They're, you know, they're Roman Catholics. They don't really trust the Pope that much. So they're really like, they don't really take like what they say too seriously. Because, you know, they know the Pope's an Italian, or was an Italian. So when I started studying it, it was really at the time, and at that time when when I was at that age, astrology was becoming very popular. So there was a lot of people around to discuss it. And it's funny, I started my store when I was like 21, my design studio, and I was really studying astrology, but I didn't have what called the ephemerises, which are the books that give you all the data that you need to really do this seriously. And I bumped into this guy at a thing. He said, "Oh, you're really studying it." Just a second. He went to his trunk and he said, "I've started studying this, but I stopped studying it. Why don't you take it?" And gave me an entire set of ephemera. It's like 5 or 6 books.
That is weird and wild and delicious.
Wonderful.
Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Yeah. And then right down the road from us in Pennsylvania, from where my studio was I'm trying to think, it was a spirit. They were a group of spiritualists. But they had a great library as well. They were, you know, a big community of spirituals. Like in San Francisco, there's the community of spiritualists as well. But people who, you know, work as psychics and, you know, look at going beyond the range. But they had this wonderful library as well. So I could always find the stuff.
And you're in Jersey.
Well, this was in Pennsylvania now.
Well, Pennsylvania. I mean, I'm just sitting here astounded. Okay, please go on.
The great thing about that part of the country is that the population density is so high.
Yeah.
That no matter what you do, you'll find someone else who does it. That's the great thing about it. When we moved out here, it was kind of a shock that the population density is so much lower that if you want to do something, the chance of finding people is harder. Out there, if you do something, someone else is going to be interested, more than one, usually. Like that's why when we were teaching, we could always find a group to teach to because there's so many people. I mean, the great majority of the population lives between Washington, D.C. and Boston.
And that whole
we were at the center of it.
That whole tri-state area is like the learning corridor. I mean, people like are lifers for school and higher education there. So,
but I wanted to add one thing before that we were talking about when Lahni was giving Feng Shui tips. A very helpful thing that for people to do, you were saying about people come with heart issues. Within a space, when you walk in a room, the area that relates to the heart is the back wall is the right third of the back wall, the wall you're facing as you walk in the room from the main entrance, that right third right there. And then the spot you really look at, literally, how high is it on where your heart is? That spot in the middle, that's the heart spot. And one thing you learn in health, if people come to you with a half dozen problems, but one of them is the heart, that's where you're starting. Because no energy in the body can be higher than the heart. And when the heart goes down, it brings everything with it. So looking at your space and see what is there. That's the romance point. That's the fun point. That's the creativity point.
And the physical organ, the heart.
And the physical organ. It's a very important vitality point. So I would say go in and point to that spot and say, what's there? And sometimes we tell people, put a picture there that gives you joy and makes you look up just a little bit. It should be about chest height. But that's just a really important thing to do. And when people go in and saying, I don't have any fun in my life, you walk in and that spot in every single room will be empty.
Ooh. Okay, so I want to get this straight in my mind because I want to do this too. So is this like when you open your front door of your house, that and then going into each room and doing that?
Yeah, when you go into each room, basically whenever you go into a room, basically your aura pops out and kind of expands and it reads the whole room. So whatever room you're walking into, but the one that's most important is usually the bedroom or if it's your office as well.
But let me give you another aspect here, and I know it's like layers of an onion, right?
Yeah.
if you could draw the outer outline of the house that you're living in,
Mhm.
and then use the front door from that, and that's the macro that I said, the more macro version of laying the bagua over the house. So then the right third of the far wall from the front door, don't just look on the inside of the house, look on the outside of the
Yeah.
house. Because if there's a cell phone tower out there, or if your electrical box is out there, or if that's where you put the compost pile or something, you're going to understand that you're going to be undermining that hard energy. Because when you invite the universal energy into your space, where are you inviting it
Right.
from? From outside your space.
Outside the world.
So you're sending a message to the universe. This is what I want in this area of my life. This is what I want in that area of my life. This is so as you're focusing that in, if it gets hung up on a cell phone tower on the way, and it's bringing microwaves to you,
Right.
it thinks that's what you want. So there are ways to mitigate that stuff. Sometimes it's very rare that we make people move.
Right.
That's very, very rare, because most of the times there are devices or things that you can do to send that energy back where it came from, mirrors or crystals or different kinds of
Right.
devices that are made that will mitigate that energy or neutralize that energy. But you need to know that it's there so that you can do something about it before it affects your health or your mental state.
Yeah. The times when we tell them to move, it's usually if there's some type of environmental toxin.
Right. Or something major.
Like
All
an
right, so-
major electromagnetic source they can't affect, they can't do anything about. Sometimes they're just overwhelming. Or like I said, we've had people had mold that was just
Yes.
endemic in the house, and they were sick all the time. That move. That's just the house is not suitable for
The
living
house
in,
is supposed to be torn down.
Yeah.
Oh
But
my gosh.
realize when you're walking in a space, what's happening is your aura, your physiology and your aura is painting that space. It just fills it. When you walk in, your body registers every single little detail on that room. Your body registers it. You don't consciously know that because you're trying to remember where you left your keys. But your body doesn't care about where your keys are. Your body's looking at the space to see if it's safe. That's why when you walk through an entranceway, your aura springs out because it's saying, is there a bear here? Is there a bear behind it? That's why, when you walk in the room, you look over. That's why if you go into, let's say you go into a restaurant and you're going to meet people, when you walk in, your body's really tense until you look over and you see your smiling friend, and you immediately relax, and your body's like, zooms towards it, because that initial image that tells you I'm safe is so important to you. And so when you walk in, if your eyes go towards that heart energy, you're moving your energy towards the right, you're moving your energy up into the strongest part of your body, and it really charges you up. But what you're really dealing with is you're dealing with the impression of your aura on the space. And what happens is whatever in those spaces is impacting on your aura. And you affect it, you put it there, but you put it there a long time ago and you thought you got over it. Guess what? The room didn't.
All right, let me ask this question, because we're going to move into the practice in just a minute, because I don't feel like we had enough time to go into everything. And I'm also feeling like, for me, like I'm very energy based, very conscious of my space, all my artwork. Yet as we're talking about things, I could probably use some tweaking. So how do y'all work Feng Shui with people just remotely, and they show you pieces of their house, or how do y'all do that?
We do it a lot of different ways, but yeah, if we can get them to, what's that called on the iPhone? No, what's on your iPhone?
Yeah.
With FaceTime.
Yeah, FaceTime.
They'll FaceTime with us and show us the space, that way.
It's a general floor plan.
You can get the floor plan. So if we get a drawn floor plan, photographs, video, and live time like this, that's even on Zoom, they just turn their laptop around and walk around and show us the space and ask us questions. And we've done like ongoing projects with people. And then they'll, we've had clients who go to the store. Is this the right color? Is this we don't
yeah, it makes sense.
So, so we do a lot of follow-up. We do map dowsing, so we can dowse the map of a place that maybe you want to move to or buy, and find out if there's any underground streams that would be problematic, or there's any kind of underground energy or animal pathways. We have a great story about it, but it's too long. But
Whoa, that's interesting. Okay, we'll
animal-
save that for the next time.
an animal pathway cutting through the house. Well, make a long story short, it was a wolf path. And she felt like, oh, people on this side of the house could never relate to the people on this side of the house. They felt like they were in different spaces.
Right through the
And it
middle of
went
the house.
diagonally right through the middle of the house. And she was unknowingly feeding the path because she had a collection of sheepskins draped over the sofa,
No
on
way.
exactly on the line. And she was looking very
Wolfy,
wolf-like.
yes.
Okay, so
yes.
this wolf pattern was established before the house was built?
Centuries ago.
Oh my God. Oh my gosh.
Across the wolf path, but that energy was so ingrained in the earth, it came up through the
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh. Again,
Like
you never quite know until you get into things. I'm sure that like, oh, well, look, there's this, and look, there's that. Man,
sometimes you find like you'll
And
find
that's
bear
why-
dens.
that's why I
old
go
bear dens.
That's why I go back to my original definition. If you understand how energy moves,
yes.
you can manipulate it to do what you want. I mean, we teach most of our clients how to use a pendulum so
Mhm.
that they can ask the right questions to try to determine things that are changing. And I want to go back to something that you said a second ago. How do you do your space? Well, feng shui is something that is an evolving thing, because as Ralph said, your space keeps you who you were, not who you
Yes.
want to be.
We're
Well,
evolving.
as soon
Right.
as you finish being feng shuied, you are going on with your life, and maybe you'll want new things. So as you are evolving through your life, you'll want to tweak your space. But if you have an understanding about what to do to accomplish what you want, or a lot of times we have clients who come for a tune-up. You know, I thought I was going to like this. I thought I was going to retire, but now I found this other thing. I'm doing something else, but now I need more energy or something. You know, your life is changing, so your space has to evolve with it.
And people get better at it. I mean, after, if you can be emotionally conscious of how the things around you make you feel. Like if you look at a piece of furniture that was given to you by that aunt who really didn't like you or didn't approve of you. And every time you look at that piece of furniture or have to use it, you get she really didn't like me.
Yeah.
And after a while, I like the furniture. And then you realize, maybe I'll sell this and buy something I like because
Yes.
that won't have that energy with it, but if you're
Right.
conscious of the feeling, it comes up again and again and again. It's one of the reasons why women have always been kind of better at this than men, is because women were more in touch with how they feel about it. Well, men will basically kind of blank it out, well, many of the times. But if you notice the feeling keeps recurring, that's you're sending an energy charge out every time you see it, and it's accumulating in that room.
And I have to say,
And
if
that
you
part
have
of
a
your aura.
lot of clients that have shoulder problems,
Yeah.
what's making them tense whenever they look at it?
Yeah.
Because that's what
That
Yeah.
too.
that's what that shoulder thing is all about. I mean, yes, way to the world, that is definitely
Yeah.
part of it, but
There's always more to it.
The other part
Mhm.
that just says, like, if you walk into a room, you can walk into your room with your eyes closed, and if the energy is good, your shoulders will relax
Yeah.
and you will go into a calm state. But if the energy is tense, you're going to feel that with your eyes closed. And a lot of times
Exactly.
we narrow down our entries into rooms, and it just pinches our aura on the way in, and nothing is going to feel right
Yeah.
when you get through there.
Yeah.
So open up those spaces. Don't put the vacuum cleaner behind the door, and
Yeah.
don't hang that jacket on top of the door so the door constantly wants to close and keep you out of there, because it hurts. It hurts
Yeah.
your aura. It doesn't allow you. And then you finally, over time, you're saying, I can't expand and regenerate my aura or spread my aura into experiencing new things, because it's constantly being pressed back into me, And so if you want to allow for that free expression of what your aura wants you to express now, you really have to give it some room.
And it accumulates, those negative energies accumulate around the doorway. So everyone who walks in is picking it up, and once you open it up and it starts getting better, the better energy is picked up by everyone too. The energy you leave behind, the pathway you leave behind really matters. When we go into spaces, we tend to go, when we do on sites, we're going in with a pretty high frequency. As we're going around the space, we're already changing the frequency because our frequency is higher.
Yes.
And people will start feeling this. And a lot of times when we've done on sites, people really get a lot from it because we've brought a lot of energy in with us. We're doing things along the way to really charge the room up, and it starts empowering them to make the necessary changes. Sometimes people will start moving furniture while we're there.
While you're there,
"Oh,
I would believe it. Like, oh
so
yeah,
this-
yes, change this now. Okay, I have one more question. This is a big question, but let's try and keep it succinct, I guess. In terms of you guys working together, what's the best part?
Oh, that we really do two different parts of our approaches are very different. We really complement each other. We don't try to sit in the same chair.
And I've
You know,
seen that.
Yeah, we like, in running our business, Lahni handles one part and I handle a very different part. And I don't want to do the part she does, and she doesn't want to do the part I do. And that's really, we like doing the parts that we do. And that, being able to be a team like that, I think is one of the best parts about it.
Well, and that's the benefit for our clients, because I don't want to be as simplistic as to say you get the male perspective and the female perspective, but you
Too.
definitely get two different perspectives, because I am the most sort of logical astrologer. My fear of connecting with the astrological community that I finally did at Princeton, where I met this guy, was that I was going to be exposed to all these woo people, and I'm thinking to myself, it's really very logical. It's very geometric. It's mathematical. It's our friend Rob Hand, he says that people ask him, you're such an intelligent person, do you really believe in astrology? And he said, do you believe in a hammer? Because you don't have to believe in the hammer for it to work.
Right.
So I'm come from very practical, and he is also very practical, but he's a lot more intuitive than I am.
Creative.
So he will look at a chart, and I'll be looking at numbers and placements and configurations and stuff like that. And he looks at a picture.
Yeah.
He sees a picture of that person. We bring so much to our clients because we can incorporate these two different ways of looking at things, and they get the benefit of all of it. But we do feel like we fire hose them sometimes.
What's funny is that the Feng Shui is different. I go in and I really look at the geometry of the space, and she goes in and she looks more at like the detail and the decorating. Is it going to be pleasing to the eye? So we really, like I said, that's kind of the secret. Find someone who compliments you, who does stuff that you don't want to do.
Oh, okay, y'all, this was so beautiful. And even just looking at looking at y'all's place behind you, it just feels even orderly isn't the word, but just peaceful. Like everything has its place where it's supposed to be, flowy yet orderly. That's an interesting combination of things. All right,
just be practice.
What are y'all gonna do for the practice for us today?
So we would look about getting people to kind of visualize their space, really visualize the space that they would like to have, in terms of like in their lives. Like if you sit for a moment and kind of just, feel how your body functions, close your eyes for a moment and realize that your left side of the body is your vulnerable side. Okay. Your left side is where you hear the heartbeat. When you hold a baby, you hold their head up a bit against your left side. Okay. The right side is where the liver is. It's strong. It's where you reach out to other people. So in your space, think about your space and think about the left side is all the things I want from me emotionally. What do I want emotionally? That's why we see the money and resources on the left side. Why? Because that makes us feel safe. That makes us feel comfortable. There's nothing wrong with feeling comfortable and safe. The right side is where we reach out to people. So when you visualize your space, as you visualize what do you want in your emotional side of your life? What do you want in terms of your comfort on that side of your life? Is that where you want to have, all the, your comfy chair, where you're going to be able to relax? Is that where you want to have your musical instruments, where you can be creative and you can be? Is that where you want to have your spot where you can meditate? What do you want to have on that left side of your life, on that emotional side of your life? And then visualize now on the right side where you reach out to other people, where you reach out and you go beyond yourself into, if you think about that first time when you realized that love was a possibility, that you meet someone and makes your heart flutter, that you can be creative, that you can come up with a new idea. What do you want to have on that side of your life? Do you want to have, do you want to have if it's at your house, do you want to have your easel on that side of your life? Your artist studio on that side of your life? Do you want to have the love seat on that side of your life, so that you and your beloved can sit together and do things together? Do you want to have, if you have children in the family, do you want to have the play area where you can do things, board games together or video games? Do you want to have that on that side of your life? What is it that you want to have on the right side of your life? What is going to complete you? Because that's basically the area of completion. We begin from the left. We begin from that sense of comfort, the me, but then we go beyond ourselves to the we, because that's how we learn. That's how we become more than just ourselves. We move from the left to the right. The body does the same thing. It goes from the stomach to the liver, from the left to the right. We go from the emotional side to the social side. So visualize what you want to have on those sides of your life, and then decide how you're going to get it there. And you start small, but visualize how you're going to get it. Visualize that it's there, and then it will become. Then it will manifest.
And always remember the balance between the two.
Balance between the two.
Okay. I'm waiting for words to come. And not to be corny, y'all, but this was really great. Thank you so much for lending your expertise, your wisdom, and your talents to everyone who is watching and everyone who is listening. I am incredibly grateful. Seriously, I'm not just saying this. I'm serious about it. Hey,
we've really enjoyed working with you. We've really enjoyed meeting you. We feel really enriched by our friendship.
Oh, that's so touching. And I will 99% sure I'll be reaching out to you guys with Feng Shui, because I'm very to conclude this, everything is energy. And I'm, that's what my work is. And I'm very particular about where I place things in my house. So to have someone else just go, yeah, that's good. Or what if you just tweak this a little bit? And all the artwork, I'm very, I come from a design background as well. So artwork, how it feels, how I love every piece of artwork in my house, and suddenly crystals and plants. I'm just, all right. So we will continue this on. I'm going to stop us in just a second. If y'all can hang on just a moment so I can officially say goodbye versus just this. All right, everybody. I'm going to have contact information for these two listed, how to get in touch with them. And I've had professional experience, so I can attest. Not only are they awesome, they're awesome here, but they know their stuff, and you saw it. All right, everybody. See ya soon. Bye. So cool of you to be here. I went from being off most social media to being on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, True Social, and you might be watching this on YouTube, Rumble, or BitChute. Or you might be listening to this on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I'm on over 19 directories at this point. So connect, comment, subscribe, like. Oh, and my intention is to have a new episode out Wednesday of each week. Oh, Lordy, more to come.